Hello, this is Tamora Pierce, better known as Tammy. People call me Tamora, and I'm convinced I'm in trouble, which is usually true. We're here this afternoon to talk about books, the ones I've read, duh. And I like to share books with people. It's my favorite thing. So here we go. And I'll be doing this off and on as we record these. Not every week, but often enough that I feel I'm being useful instead of goofing off.
So the first author on this list is Diana Wynne Jones.
Diana Wynne Jones. She was and is a phenomenon. A manic, British, funny, deep writer. I still recommend, even though it's hard to find, her Tough Guide to Fantasyland to anyone who wants to write fantasy. Not just for kids, but for adult writers as well, because she takes familiar tropes from fantasy, things that show up way too often, and puts it in the form of a tour book to Fantasyland, and talks about finding gay mages and how they're sensitive and will give you back rubs during the tour you're on about different creatures you'll find, the dignified elves, dragons, about why is it when you're on a journey that takes all day, you're always eating stew, which anyone who's cooked it knows is a meal that you have to cook for about 8 hours, stationary. And also, if they don't go hunting as they're traveling, and if they never see any farms with livestock, what is the meat in stew? She is full of very useful observations like that. And it's always delightful to hand the book to a fantasy writer because it's such an uncomfortable read for us. Because we'll sit there and they'll go, okay, I haven't done that. Okay, I did that, but there's a reason I did that. In addition to that, she wrote a book about Fantasyland in which this mage with a burgeoning family, one daughter of whom is a griffin, and this year he's been picked to set up the whole scenario for Fantasyland tour. And these people from our world have paid to go on this tour. And he has to set up all the traps, all the paths, all the magical things that will happen to these tourists without killing them. But the people of Fantasyland are really tired of being taken advantage of this way. So he's got to think of something to do without anyone getting hurt. And of course, the tourists are as clueless as tourists in our real world can sometimes be. So it's hysterical.
And what was that one called? Was it the Dirkholm books?
The Dark Lord of Dirkholm is different, I think.
Let's see. It says on the list that Tough Guide to Fantasyland is an offshoot of the Dirkholm books.
Oh, then it is the Dark Lord of Dirkholm. And the Dark Lord of Dirkholm is in fact a harried, harassed father of a lively family who has his own job. And now this year he's stuck being a tour guide. She's also written a series of books roughly based around in England, in that world, the magical people have a leader called Crestomancy. And there are different crestomancies, but they all are in charge of the law as it pertains to mages. And when mages get out of hand, it's crestomancy who comes and straightens things out. Charmed Life, which is the first of the crestomancy books, is the first one I found when I was working at a literary agency. And I fell in love because Charmed Life is about mild, unassuming Cat Chan, whose parents died, and he and his sister Gwendolyn were put with an old witch who is training them in their abilities, theoretically, and is trying to get crestomancy to take Gwendolyn, whom she thinks is a very talented witch, into his household to make her rich and famous. And Gwendolyn encourages her by doing all kinds of tricks she shouldn't be doing without an education. There's a lot of mystery about crestomancy's relationship with Cat's parents. And finally he shows up very irritated, takes the two kids under his wing, and seems to be far more interested in Cat, who's meek and self-effacing, mostly because when Gwendolyn's in the room, she doesn't leave any room for anyone else. And crestomancy wants to know why Cat puts up with it. And he brings them to his home with his wife and his magical kids and the magical uncles and aunts. And there's all sorts of strange things going on and strange things happening to Cat. There's the dinner party that's a true disaster. I say no more.
The next person on the list is Philip Pullman.
I can say his first name now. He told me I could. He's always Mr. Pullman when I talk about him. But Philip Pullman, I did a couple of interviews online with him and Christopher Bailini. I met him a couple times. We had dinner once. I admire him very, very much. We shared an editor in common in England, David Fickling, who now has his own house, and Mr. Pullman continues to publish with him, I believe. I discovered his books, the Sally Lockhart mysteries, about a young woman detective in Victorian England, and I loved them. And David Fickling, who worked with him at Oxford University Press, recommended to me Lyra and her series, The Dark Materials. And of course he knew that I loved female heroes and that I'd read the Sally Lockhart mysteries. So I plunged right into Mr. Pullman's writing. He's a very intelligent man, and he covers a wide array of issues of right and wrong. He has got a bit of a bee in his bonnet about religion, and has undertaken to discuss C.S. Lewis on a number of occasions. But his storytelling is priceless. He gives female characters just as much agency as male characters, good and bad female characters, and they are as powerful, especially his female villains. But even his female Egyptians, they're called in his world, for gypsies, are a treat. And of course, you probably know them better if you haven't read the books first as his Dark Materials, the movies.
And Sharon Chin.
Sharon Chin has been publishing since the 80s, which was when I came to New York and worked in a literary agency, I think. I read her early books that are science fiction, where people colonize a planet, and the women who find a way to call rain, who find a way to make the ground fertile. Archangel is the first book in those series, and it's the genre that was called science fantasy. My favorite books of hers are a trilogy of books set in a fantasy world. The first book is The Safekeeper's Secret. In this world, there are kids born who grow up and people who are engaged in their adult work as the safekeeper, people can come to the safekeeper and give into their protection a secret that they feel they have to tell about themselves, about someone they know, and the safekeeper will keep it past that person's life unless the person says, okay, they can tell it. There are two others, the dream maker, who gives the person one wish in a lifetime that can be granted. And there's the truth teller. And you may not like it, but the truth teller will tell you the truth about something. And this trilogy is about 3 kids who come into those roles and how they come together. And it's a beautiful trilogy. It has its dark aspects, but the kids, in the fullness of time, as they grow older, become friends, and their gifts and their personalities interact. It's a beautiful trilogy. If you can find it, please do. And look up some of Shin's other work, because she has the poetry in her writing, as well as a clear sense of what's right, wrong, good, bad.
And the last one we're going to do today is Daniel Jose Older.
Daniel Jose Older. I keep imagining he must look like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I started reading his work with a series about a taxi driver in Brooklyn, New York, who is a conduit with the underworld and a wizard, I think, of sorts. And he deals with, as a go-between, between the undead and anybody among the undead who is making trouble and destroying things and haunting things. And he drives a cab sometimes to make a living. And he mediates between the magic of the living and the magic of the dead. And also, okay, remind me, this Civil War.
Dactyl Hill Squad.
Dactyl Hill Squad. Orphan kids with magical powers who are dealing in New York City at the time of the Civil War. And instead of balloons they have captured dinosaurs and airborne dinosaurs to fight in the sky over the Union and Confederate armies. And these orphan kids are seeing these animals being tortured, and they do their best to escape their vicious keepers, the kids, and help the dragons. And this is the first book, takes place in New York City at the time of the draft riots. And if that doesn't interest you in the book, orphans, evil prisoners, evil guards rather, dragons, and the American Civil War, I wash my hands of you.
And I think that's it for today.
Okay, Julie tells me that's it, so Thank you very much for listening to me babble, and we'll talk next time.